The morning sun spilled through the lace curtains of Emily Russell's modest apartment in Willow Grove, Vermont, casting a warm glow over the worn wooden floors. At 28, Emily moved with quiet purpose in her small kitchen, the aroma of brewing coffee mingling with the faint scent of acrylic paint that always clung to her clothes. Through the window, she could see the heart of the quaint town, a cluster of historic brick buildings, their facades adorned with ivy. At the center stood the Russell Gallery, its sleek sign glinting gold in the light. Once her family's pride, it now loomed like a monument to her fractured past. Emily's green hazel eyes lingered on the gallery, her chest tightening. Her parents, Henry and Margaret Russell, had built an empire on art, but for them, it was currency, not passion. They dismissed her talent as a childish whim, urging her toward a practical life. At 19, she defied them, chasing her dreams, until one night shattered everything. Pregnant, abandoned, and disowned, she'd clawed her way back, building a life for herself and her son. Yet the gallery's shadow never faded. "Mom, look at this." A bright voice snapped her from her thoughts. 8-year-old Lucas bounded into the kitchen, his dark curls bouncing as he clutched a sketch pad. His latest drawing, a forest clearing with sunlight filtering through misty trees, was breathtaking. Each stroke captured the delicate interplay of light and shadow, the leaves almost shimmering with life. For a moment, Emily forgot to breathe. "Lucas, this is incredible," she said, kneeling to meet his sparkling eyes. "It's like the woods are alive." "It's the park near school," Lucas said, his voice bubbling with pride. The trees looked happy today. Emily's heart swelled. His ability to see emotion in the world mirrored her own, a gift she'd nurtured through her work teaching art at the Willow Grove Community Center. Her own paintings, vibrant landscapes, and abstracts hung on the apartment's walls and in local cafes, earning quiet praise. But the Russell Gallery? That was a world she'd been locked out of. She ruffled Lucas's hair. "You're going to steal the show at class today. We've got a special guest, Mia Thorne, the potter." Lucas's face lit up. "Can I make a vase? Like a cool one with swirls?" Emily laughed, the sound easing the knot in her chest. "You can make anything you want, kiddo. Let your imagination go wild." As she set out cereal and a banana for Lucas, her mind drifted to her teenage years. At 19, she'd been a rising star in Willow Grove's art scene, her work winning local contests. She'd met Jake Collins in art club, a brooding senior with a knack for bold, expressive sketches. They bonded over their shared rebellion against their family's expectations, falling hard and fast. But one reckless night changed everything. When the pregnancy test showed 2 lines, Jake vanished, and her parents' rage was merciless. "You're a disgrace to the Russells," Henry had roared, his voice echoing through their grand estate. Margaret, ever poised, had pointed to the door. "Leave, and don't come back." Only Clara Monroe, her high school art teacher, had offered a lifeline. Clara's kindness, shelter, encouragement, a path to community college had saved Emily. Now, she poured her heart into her students and Lucas, determined to give him the freedom she'd been denied. Yet the past clung to her like damp fog. The sharp ring of her phone jolted her. She glanced at the screen and froze. Sophie Russell. Her younger sister, 25 now, hadn't reached out in 5 years. Not since Emily had been cast out. Her hand hovered over the phone, pulse racing. What could Sophie want? Swallowing hard, she answered. "Hello. Emily, it's me." Sophie's voice was tight, laced with something Emily couldn't place, urgency, maybe fear. "I need to talk to you. In person. Can we meet tomorrow?" Emily's grip on the phone tightened. Her first instinct was to refuse, to protect the fragile life she'd built. But something in Sophie's tone stopped her. "Is everything okay?" she asked. "It's complicated. Please, Em. It's important." Sophie's plea cracked Emily's resolve. She glanced at Lucas, who was adding final touches to his sketch, oblivious to the storm brewing in her heart. "Fine," Emily said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Tomorrow." "Where?" "The Green Leaf Cafe, 3 o'clock." "Thank you, Emily." The call ended, leaving a heavy silence. Emily stared out the window, the Russell Gallery's sign gleaming like a taunt. 5 years of silence, and now this. What did her family want? Redemption? Control? Or was this about their precious reputation, as always? She turned to Lucas, forcing a smile. "Finish up, buddy. We've got a big day." But as she cleared the breakfast dishes, her mind raced. The Russells didn't reach out without a reason. Whatever Sophie wanted, it threatened to unravel the life Emily had fought so hard to build. She straightened her shoulders, her resolve hardening. She'd face them, not for her parents, but for herself and Lucas. Tomorrow, she'd step into the past, ready to fight for her future. The autumn air in Willow Grove carried the crisp scent of fallen leaves as Emily Russell stepped out of her apartment, her heart pounding. The quaint Vermont town buzzed with its usual charm, shopkeepers swept sidewalks, and early risers jogged through the park, but Emily's focus was on the Green Leaf Cafe, where she'd meet her sister Sophie after 5 years of silence. At 28, Emily had rebuilt her life from the ashes of her family's rejection, but the call from Sophie yesterday had cracked that foundation. What did the Russells want now? She dropped Lucas off at the Community Arts Center, where he'd spend the morning in a weekend workshop. Have fun with Mia, okay, she said, adjusting his backpack. Lucas, 8 and brimming with energy, grinned. I'm gonna make the best vase ever. His enthusiasm eased her nerves, but only slightly. Kissing his forehead, she whispered, I know you will, buddy. As he ran inside, sketchpad in hand, Emily steeled herself. She'd face Sophie, but on her terms. The Green Leaf Cafe sat nestled between a bookstore and a bakery, its terrace dotted with wrought iron tables. Emily arrived early, ordering a black coffee she barely touched. Through the window, she could see the Russell Gallery across the town square, its polished exterior a stark contrast to her modest life. Her parents, Henry and Margaret, had turned it into a cornerstone of Willow Grove's art scene, but they'd always treated her passion for painting as a liability. At 19, pregnant and abandoned by her boyfriend Jake, she'd been cast out for shaming their name. The memory burned, sharp and raw. A figure appeared at the cafe entrance, and Emily's breath caught. Sophie, 25, stepped onto the terrace, her tailored blazer and sleek ponytail screaming Russell polish. She looked every bit the perfect daughter, poised, successful, everything Emily had refused to become. But Sophie's eyes, shadowed with unease, betrayed her composure. Emily, she said, her voice soft but strained. She hesitated, then leaned in for a quick, awkward hug. You look good. Emily managed a tight smile, gesturing to the chair across from her. You too. It's been a while. The understatement hung heavy between them. Sophie sat, fidgeting with her purse, and for a moment, they exchanged small talk. Weather, town gossip, each word a careful step across a minefield. Emily's patience frayed. Sophie, why am I here? She asked, her tone sharper than intended. Sophie took a deep breath, her hands clasping tightly. I'm getting married next month. To Tom Weston. Emily blinked, caught off guard. The Westons were old money, their name synonymous with influence in Willow Grove. Congratulations, she said, meaning it despite the pang in her chest. Sophie's smile was genuine but fleeting. Thanks. He's wonderful. We met through Dad's business contacts, but it's real. Emily nodded, waiting. Sophie wouldn't drag her here just for a wedding invite. And, she prompted. Sophie's gaze dropped to the table. I want you at the wedding, Em. You and Lucas. The words hit like a punch. Emily set her coffee down, her mind racing. You want me there? After everything? Mom and Dad made it clear I'm not family anymore. Sophie winced. That's not true. Things have changed. Dad's sick, Emily. His heart. It's been bad since last year. The doctors want him to slow down, but you know how he is. Emily's stomach twisted. Henry Russell, the unyielding patriarch who'd called her a disgrace, was mortal after all. She hated the flicker of concern that stirred in her. After all he'd done, she shouldn't care. And Mom, she asked, voice low. Mom's trying to keep things together, Sophie said. But they both want to make things right. They miss you. Emily scoffed, the sound bitter. Miss me? They called Lucas a mistake, Sophie. They threw me out at 19, pregnant and alone. Her voice trembled, and she clenched her fist to steady herself. Sophie reached out, then stopped, her hand hovering. I know, she said quietly. I was there. I should have said something. I'm sorry. The apology caught Emily off guard, softening her defenses. She looked away, focusing on the park across the street where kids chased each other, carefree. What do they want then? Absolution. Sophie shook her head. It's not just them. Tom's family. They're traditional. They expect a united front at the wedding. The whole Russell family. Emily's eyes narrowed. So this is about appearances. Saving face for the Westons. No. Sophie said, then softened. Okay, maybe partly. But I want you there, Em. You're my sister. I've missed you. Her voice cracked, and Emily saw a glimpse of the girl who'd once slipped her piggy bank savings when Emily was cast out. The memory stung, but it wasn't enough to erase the betrayal. Sophie slid an envelope across the table. This is from them, she said. Emily stared at it, her pulse quickening. With trembling fingers, she opened it. Inside was a check, more money than she'd earned in 2 years at the art center, and a brief note in Henry's precise handwriting. Asterisk, Emily, this is part of your trust fund. We'd like to discuss the rest in person. Henry Russell. Asterisk. Emily's breath hitched. The money could change Lucas's life, better schools, art supplies, a real future. But it felt like a bribe, a way to buy her silence or compliance. They think they can buy me back? She asked, her voice low and dangerous. Sophie shook her head. It's not like that. They want to start over. Please, just think about it. Emily tucked the envelope into her bag, her mind a storm of anger and temptation. I'll think about it, she said finally, standing. But don't expect me to forget what they did. Sophie nodded, her eyes glistening. I get it. Just let me know soon, okay? The wedding's in 3 weeks. As Emily walked back through Willow Grove, the Russell Gallery loomed in the distance, its windows reflecting the graying sky. She thought of Lucas, his talent, his innocence. She'd built a life for them, imperfect but theirs. Now her family wanted back in, dangling money and promises. But at what cost? By the time she reached the art center, her resolve had hardened. She'd go to the wedding, not for Henry or Margaret, but to prove she wasn't the broken girl they discarded. Whatever game they were playing, she'd face it head-on. The grand ballroom of the Weston estate glittered under crystal chandeliers, their light dancing across tables adorned with white lilies and silver cutlery. Willow Grove's elite filled the space, their laughter and clinking glasses a stark contrast to the tension coiling in Emily Russell's chest. At 28, she stood at the edge of the opulent room, her simple navy dress a quiet rebellion against the extravagance. Her 8-year-old son, Lucas, clutched her hand, his small tuxedo slightly askew but his eyes wide with wonder. This was Sophie's wedding day, and Emily had stepped back into the world she'd been banished from 5 years ago. The Russell Gallery's influence was everywhere, its logo embossed on the programs, its reputation whispered among the guests. Emily's parents, Henry and Margaret, had orchestrated this union between Sophie and Tom Weston, a match that cemented their status. Emily had agreed to come, not for them, but to show she'd survived their rejection. Yet the weight of their presence, the check burning a hole in her purse, and Sophie's plea for reconciliation made every step feel like walking a tightrope. Mom, this place is huge, Lucas whispered, tugging her sleeve. Can I draw later? Emily smiled, smoothing his dark curls. Sure, buddy. Just stay close for now. She scanned the room, spotting Sophie in her flowing white gown, radiant as she greeted guests. The ceremony had been flawless, and now the reception buzzed with anticipation. Emily's heart thudded as she caught sight of Henry and Margaret approaching, their faces a mix of formality and unease. Emily, Henry said, his voice softer than she remembered. His gray hair and tired eyes betrayed the heart condition Sophie had mentioned. We're glad you came. Margaret, ever elegant in an emerald gown, nodded. You look well, dear. And Lucas, her gaze softened as she looked at the boy. He's grown so much. Emily's grip on Lucas tightened. He has, she said coolly. He's doing great. The words were a shield, guarding the life she'd built without them. Before the conversation could deepen, Sophie rushed over, her veil trailing. You made it, she exclaimed, pulling Emily into a tight hug. She knelt to Lucas's level. And you must be Lucas. I'm your Aunt Sophie. You're so handsome in that tux. Lucas blushed, mumbling a shy, thanks. Sophie's warmth was genuine, and for a moment, Emily felt a flicker of the sisterly bond they'd once shared. But the Russell name hung heavy, and she couldn't shake the feeling this was all a performance. As the evening unfolded, Emily kept to the edges, avoiding the spotlight. Lucas, growing restless amid the speeches and toasts, settled in a quiet corner with his sketch pad. Emily watched him, her heart swelling at the way his pencil danced across the page, capturing the ballroom's grandeur with a child's unfiltered awe. She was about to join him when a voice broke through the hum of the crowd. Remarkable. Simply remarkable. Emily turned to see Edward Weston, Tom's uncle and a renowned art critic, leaning over Lucas's shoulder. His silver hair gleamed under the lights as he studied the sketch, a vivid depiction of the ballroom, with chandeliers sparkling like stars. Whose child is this? Edward called, drawing curious glances. Emily hurried over, her pulse racing. He's mine, she said, placing a protective hand on Lucas's shoulder. I'm Emily Russell. Edward's eyes lit up. Russell? As in the Russell Gallery? My dear, this boy's talent is extraordinary. Guests gathered, murmuring in admiration. Lucas beamed, unaware of the weight of the moment. Edward turned to Emily, his voice warm but probing. You must be Henry's daughter. The artistic gene runs strong in your family. It reminds me of your father's early work. Emily froze. My father. The words felt foreign. Henry Russell, the man who'd called her art a hobby, a painter? Edward nodded, oblivious to her shock. Oh, yes. Henry was a prodigy in his youth. His landscapes had a rare emotional depth, such bold use of color. It was a tragedy when he gave it up for the gallery business. The revelation hit Emily like a tidal wave. Her father, who'd crushed her dreams, had once shared them? She scanned the room, locking eyes with Henry. He stood rigid, Margaret's hand on his arm as if to steady him. Emily's voice trembled as she approached. Is it true? You were a painter. The question hung in the air, sharp and accusing. Guests fell silent, sensing the shift. Henry's jaw tightened, but Edward, unaware, continued. Of course it's true. His work was the talk of Vermont in the 80s. Why? Emily, you must have inherited his gift. The room seemed to close in. Emily's voice rose, years of hurt spilling out. You never told me. You made me feel like my art was worthless, like I was a failure for wanting it. Why? Margaret stepped forward, her face pale. Emily, this isn't the place. But Emily cut her off. No, I want answers. You threw me out for chasing what you abandoned. Why? Henry's eyes glistened, his voice low. I wanted to protect you. Art didn't pay the bills. I learned that the hard way. The admission was raw, but it wasn't enough. Emily's chest heaved. Protect me? You disowned me. You called my son a mistake. Whispers rippled through the crowd, the Russell family's pristine image cracking. Margaret's voice was sharp. Emily, please. This is Sophie's day. Before Emily could respond, Sophie appeared, her gown sweeping the floor. Enough, she said, her voice commanding despite the tremble. This is my wedding, and I won't let it be ruined. She turned to the guests, her smile strained but firm. My sister and nephew are here because they're family. That's what matters. She took Emily's hand, her eyes pleading. Stay, please. The room erupted in tentative applause, the tension easing but not dissolving. Emily looked at Lucas, who'd paused his drawing to watch, confusion in his wide eyes. She knelt beside him, forcing calm. You okay, buddy? He nodded, clutching his sketch pad. Is everyone mad? Emily's heart ached. No, just talking. Let's get some cake soon, okay? As the reception resumed, Emily felt the weight of 100 eyes. Edward's revelation had peeled back a layer of her family's facade, exposing a truth Henry had buried. She wanted to flee, to shield Lucas from this world of secrets and status. But Sophie's plea anchored her. This wasn't just about the past, it was about reclaiming her place, not as a Russell, but as Emily. She straightened, her resolve hardening. Whatever truths lay ahead, she'd face them, for Lucas and for herself. The morning after Sophie's wedding, Willow Grove woke to a quiet Sunday, its streets dusted with the first fallen leaves of autumn. Emily Russell sat at her small kitchen table, the events of the previous night replaying in her mind like a restless dream. At 28, she was no stranger to upheaval, but the revelation that her father, Henry, had once been a painter, a secret buried beneath his rigid expectations, had shaken her. The Russell Gallery, a symbol of her family's control, felt more oppressive than ever. Yet it was the weight of Sophie's plea and the check in her purse that kept her awake, torn between anger and the faint hope of reconciliation. Lucas, her 8-year-old son, was sprawled on the living room floor, sketching a new scene from the wedding, a swirl of chandeliers and dancing figures. His talent, so vivid at the reception, had drawn gasps from the Weston's guests, including Edward Weston, the art critic who'd unknowingly exposed Henry's past. Emily watched Lucas, her heart a tangle of pride and fear. His gift was undeniable, but it tethered him to a legacy she'd fought to escape. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number flashing on the screen. She hesitated, then answered, expecting a telemarketer or a wrong number. Emily Russell? The voice was smooth, confident, and chillingly familiar. Her breath caught. Who is this? She asked, though a sinking feeling told her she already knew. It's Jake Collins, the man said, his tone carrying a casual arrogance. Lucas's father. The world seemed to tilt. Jake, her college boyfriend who'd abandoned her at 19 when she told him she was pregnant. The boy who'd promised love, then fled to chase his art career in New York. For 8 years, he'd been a ghost, leaving her to raise Lucas alone. What do you want? Emily's voice was ice, her grip on the phone tightening. I saw the article in the Willow Grove Herald, Jake said. Your kid's a prodigy. Everyone's talking about his sketches at the Weston wedding. He's got my talent, Emily. I want to meet him. Her blood ran cold. The article, a small piece about the wedding's highlights, had mentioned Lucas's drawings, calling him a rising star. She'd thought it harmless until now. "You have no right," she snapped, glancing at Lucas to ensure he couldn't hear. "You walked away. You don't get to waltz back because he's talented." Jake's laugh was sharp, cutting. "I'm his father. I have rights. And trust me, I can give him a better life than you can in that rundown apartment. I'm a name in New York now, galleries, collectors. Lucas could be huge with my guidance." Emily's vision blurred with rage. "You're not his father. You're a stranger who left us to survive on our own." Jake's tone hardened. "Don't make this difficult, Emily. I'd hate for this to end up in court or in the press. Russell family hides genius boy's real father. Imagine the headlines." The threat landed like a blow. Emily ended the call, her hands trembling. She sank into a chair, memories flooding back. The night she'd told Jake she was pregnant, his panicked eyes, his promise to figure it out before he vanished. She'd faced her parents' wrath alone, their screams of disgrace echoing as they threw her out. Now Jake wanted to exploit Lucas's talent for his own gain, and the Russells' reappearance made her feel cornered. "Mom, you okay?" Lucas's voice pulled her back. He stood by the table, his sketchpad tucked under his arm, worry creasing his brow. Emily forced a smile. "Just a weird call, buddy. How's your drawing coming?" He brightened, showing her the page, a vivid scene of Sophie's dance with Tom, the joy captured in every line. "It's for Aunt Sophie," he said. Emily hugged him, hiding her fear. She wouldn't let Jake near him. That afternoon, she paced the apartment, the check from her parents taunting her from the table. It could fund a lawyer, protect Lucas legally, but accepting it felt like surrendering to the Russells' control. Her phone rang again. This time, it was Henry. "Emily, Sophie told me about Jake," he said, his voice gruff but concerned. He contacted her, fishing for information. "We want to help." Emily's jaw clenched. Henry, offering help? The man who disowned her now wanted to play protector? "Why should I trust you?" she asked. Henry sighed. "I know we failed you, but Lucas is our grandson, and we won't let that man hurt him or you." The words stirred something in her, a mix of skepticism and desperation. "I'll handle it," she said, hanging up. By evening, Emily had made a decision. She couldn't face Jake alone, not with his threats of courts and media. She called a local lawyer, Sarah Bennett, recommended by her old art teacher, Clara. Sarah listened as Emily recounted Jake's absence and his sudden demands. "He has no legal standing," Sarah said firmly. "No contact, no support, he's a non-entity. But we need to move fast. I'll dig into his background. Men like him usually have skeletons." Emily felt a spark of hope, but the fear lingered. That night, she barely slept, haunted by visions of Jake charming a judge or spinning lies to the press. She thought of Lucas, his sketches, his innocent trust. She'd fought too hard to let anyone, Jake, her parents, or the Russell legacy, take that away. The next morning, Sarah called with news that changed everything. "Jake's got a history," she said. "He's dodged child support for another kid in New Jersey and was fined for art fraud 2 years ago. If he pushes, we can bury him." Emily's heart raced. This was her chance, not just to protect Lucas, but to expose Jake for who he was. She agreed to meet him, but on her terms, with Sarah's guidance. The cafe was set for tomorrow, and Emily would be ready. As she tucked Lucas into bed, his latest drawing, A Starry Night Over Willow Grove, lay on the nightstand. "You're my hero, you know that?" she whispered. Lucas smiled sleepily. "You're mine, too." The battle was coming, and Emily felt the weight of it. Jake's threat wasn't just about Lucas, it was a challenge to everything she'd built. But she wasn't the scared 19-year-old anymore. With Sarah's evidence and her own resolve, she'd fight, not with vengeance, but with the law. The Russells' offer of help lingered, a fragile bridge she wasn't sure she could cross. For now, she'd stand alone, a mother guarding her son, ready to face the storm. The courtroom in Willow Grove's modest county building was hushed, the air thick with anticipation. Emily Russell sat beside her lawyer, Sarah Bennett, her hands clasped tightly to steady her nerves. At 28, she'd faced countless battles, her parents' rejection, Jake's betrayal, the struggle to raise Lucas alone. But this moment felt like the culmination of them all. Across the room, Jake Collins, polished in a tailored suit, exuded confidence, but Emily knew better. Today, the truth would unravel him. 8-year-old Lucas sat in the gallery, his sketchpad on his lap, flanked by Sophie and her new husband, Tom Weston. Emily had hesitated to bring him, but Lucas had insisted, his quiet determination mirroring her own. "I want to be there, Mom," he'd said, and she couldn't deny him. Her parents, Henry and Margaret, were there too, their presence a fragile olive branch after years of estrangement. Emily still hadn't forgiven them, but their support against Jake had shifted something, a crack in the wall between them. The judge, a stern woman with silver-streaked hair, called the hearing to order. Jake's lawyer opened with a slick narrative, painting him as a reformed artist seeking to connect with his gifted son. Emily's stomach churned as Jake took the stand, his voice smooth. I was young, Your Honor, and made mistakes. But Lucas is my son, and his talent, my talent, deserves a chance to shine. I can offer him opportunities Ms. Russell can't. Emily's nails dug into her palms. Sarah leaned close, whispering, He's digging his own grave. Stay calm. When Sarah's turn came, she was relentless. Mr. Collins, you claim to want a relationship with Lucas, yet you've had no contact for 8 years. No calls, no support. Why now? Jake shifted, his charm faltering. I wasn't ready then, but I'm established now. Sarah pounced. Established? Let's discuss your record. She presented documents, a court order from New Jersey for unpaid child support, a fine for art fraud in New York, and testimonies from 2 women accusing Jake of manipulation. The gallery murmured, and Jake's face paled. Those are unrelated, he stammered. Sarah pressed harder. You threatened my client with media exposure to gain custody. Is that the act of a father or an opportunist? The judge's eyes narrowed as Sarah submitted evidence of Jake's call to Emily, recorded with her consent. His voice, smug and threatening, echoed in the courtroom. I'll tell the press the Russells hid my son. Gasps rippled through the room. Henry and Margaret, called as witnesses, confirmed Jake's attempt to extort information through Sophie. Henry's voice, usually commanding, was heavy with regret. We failed Emily once. We won't let this man harm our grandson. The judge deliberated briefly before delivering her ruling. Mr. Collins, you have no legal or moral claim to Lucas Russell. Your history of deceit and abandonment speaks for itself. Custody is denied, and you're ordered to pay a fine for attempted coercion. She turned to Emily. Ms. Russell, your son is yours, unequivocally. Cheers erupted, and Lucas ran to Emily, burying his face in her arms. We won, Mom, he whispered. She hugged him tightly, tears stinging her eyes. Outside, the crisp October air felt like a fresh start. Sophie embraced Emily, her eyes shining. You were amazing. Tom clapped Lucas on the shoulder, grinning. You've got one tough mom, kid. Henry and Margaret approached, their expressions tentative. Emily, Henry said, we're proud of you. And we're sorry for everything. Margaret's voice trembled. We want to know Lucas. If you'll let us. Emily looked at them, the weight of 5 years' pain still raw. An apology isn't enough, she said quietly. But for Lucas, I'm willing to try. Step by step. She placed a hand on her son's shoulder. He deserves to choose his path, and I expect you to respect that. Henry nodded, a flicker of humility in his eyes. We will. 3 months later, Willow Grove sparkled under a light snow, the Russell Gallery aglow with holiday lights. Emily stood inside its newly opened Future Talents wing, where her paintings hung alongside Lucas's sketches and works by her students. The space, Henry's idea, was a platform for young artists, a departure from the gallery's elitist past. Emily had been skeptical, but seeing her art on those walls, vibrant landscapes alive with emotion, felt like reclaiming a piece of herself. Henry, reinvigorated, had returned to painting, his own canvases displayed modestly in a corner. He'd even begun teaching Lucas, their sessions filled with laughter and shared passion. Margaret, softer now, spent Saturdays with Lucas in the park, her once rigid demeanor melting under his chatter. The wounds of the past hadn't healed, but they were stitching together, one careful moment at a time. On Christmas morning, Emily woke to Lucas's excited shout. Mom, Santa came. The living room tree, modest but bright, was surrounded by gifts, including packages from Henry and Margaret. Lucas tore into them, revealing art supplies and a small easel. Grandpa says I can paint with him next week, he said, beaming. Emily smiled, her heart lighter than it had been in years. That sounds perfect, buddy. As they sipped hot cocoa, a letter arrived from Edward Weston, the art critic who'd sparked the chain of events at Sophie's wedding. He'd seen Emily's work in the gallery and was inviting her to exhibit in a New York showcase. Your voice is vital, he wrote. The art world needs you. Emily's breath caught. This was her chance, not just to shine, but to define her legacy on her terms. That evening, the doorbell rang. Henry and Margaret stood outside, snow dusting their coats, holding more gifts. "Merry Christmas," Henry said, his eyes warm. For the first time, Emily invited them in without hesitation. As they gathered around the table, Lucas showed off his latest drawing, a snowy Willow Grove, the gallery glowing like a beacon. Emily watched her family, imperfect but trying, and felt a quiet strength. She'd fought for justice, not with vengeance, but with truth, and won more than a courtroom victory. She'd won her future. Outside, snow fell softly, blanketing the town in peace. Emily looked at Lucas, her anchor, and knew, whatever came next, they'd face it together, painting their own story, one bold stroke at a time.